Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Marie Yambo. You can get in touch with us on our social media platforms, that is at Marie Yambo and at KBC Channel 1 on Twitter, KBC Channel 1 TV on Facebook. So today, the question is there a connection between mental health and cultism? That is the question we would like to unpack today. Cults are often associated with extreme behavior and manipulation, as is the case of the Good News International Church, led by the controversial pastor Paul Mackenzie. Well, joining me in studio today to speak to this subject of mental health and cultism is Josephine Wawuda Mwagogo, a counseling psychologist and addiction counselor and the director Springs of Hope Limited. Welcome to the program, Josephine.
Thank you so much, Marie.
And thank you for being here. But now, before we even delve into the issue of what is the connection between mental health and cultism,
Yes.
this being the Mental Health Awareness Month,
Yes.
we would just like for you to define for us briefly what is mental health.
Okay, thank you, Marie, once again. Now, mental health is a state of well-being of an individual, and we're saying this individual is able to realize their abilities, and they're also able to cope with the normal stresses in life. So as they're able to manage these, that means they also remain productive, and they also remain fruitful in what they do. And that means they're also actually able to give back to the community. So when you're able to do that, then you say you're actually well mentally. Yeah, is that mental well-being? Yes.
So mental well-being does not mean a lack of stress in life.
It doesn't mean lack of stress, Marie. Here what you're saying is that you are able to cope.
You're able to
You
cope.
are able to cope. You can still remain productive and fruitful, and still be a good contributor to the community. Okay, so that's now that's now being well, mentally well.
Okay.
Okay, because you see, mental health also if I'm not well, that means I'm ill. So there's an aspect of mental illness.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a person who probably will not be able to cope so well. And as a result, probably because of psychological distress, which could either come from your finances, family, and so on, work-related. So that, of course, will bring you to what? Mental illness.
So that also means mental wellness is the also ability to be able to make rational decisions.
Yes, you should be able to make rational decisions.
Okay.
Exactly, despite any stressful situation you could be facing.
Okay. So now let's delve to this issue that has hit the headlines and shocked many of us in our country, and that is the issue of the Shakahola deaths. And this is actually connected to a cult. You know, we'll be talking about how does one identify what a cult is.
Yes.
But in this case, I'm just wondering, could there be a connection between mental health and cultism?
Okay. Now, I think we could start by defining what a cult is. When you talk about a cult, it's either a group of people who have come together, and most of the time they have a set of beliefs that they believe in. And most of the time you find in a cult, you always have a charismatic leader who basically is the one who leads this particular group or cult of people. Now, depending on who are the followers, because remember, people join cults for many reasons. There are others probably who could have just undergone psychological loss, or financial loss. Others probably who are also having challenges in life, either with their self-esteem issues or loneliness, just trying to understand find out the meaning in life. Now, you can imagine such a person in that particular state or space. That means even in terms of their mental well-being. Remember, we talked about it's you having your abilities, being able to cope. That already is actually challenged. So you see, it also has a bit of that connection with what? With mental wellness. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of, so essentially, as someone who's looking for answers in life is susceptible sometimes to joining a cult or something of that sort.
Yes.
And just like you said, it's a set of beliefs that people
and values too.
And values that people ascribe to.
Yes.
And all that. So can being in a cult, there is the issue of probably you are mentally a little bit unstable, but just being in a cult, can it also make you mentally unstable?
Remember, when you're in a cult, there's a lot of indoctrination. And this is around a set of beliefs and values. So the first question you're asking ourselves, do they resonate with my own personal values? Because if there is something that what you call cognitive dissonance, that means they don't agree with my own personal values, they are not aligned to my own actions. So again, that could bring a conflict, what you call mental conflict. And of course, with that, actually, it can also result to what? To a mental illness.
Okay.
So you can see now how the connection comes in. Yes.
And so maybe in your practice as a counseling psychologist and an addiction expert at the same time, what are some of those mental disorders that you've seen in your practice that are associated with people who have joined cults and probably have come for therapy?
Remember, most of these people, they have what you call the false beliefs, okay? A bit of paranoia, okay? Because there's a lot of illusion around the things that they are forced to believe in, the set of values that they're forced also to adhere to, okay? So that one you'll find again with people who are actually associated with such cults. And even you find even the leaders themselves, they are more of narcissistic kind of personality, because it is either my way. I'm the one who makes the decisions. So you follow what I say. So you'll find such kind of leaders, you have actually they tend to board on that kind of personality disorder.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So it's
and of course the followers will be more dependent, because they're actually looking at this leader who has to give direction on what needs to be done. For us to make sure that we adhere to this particular cult.
So that brings me to the question: what tactics then do they use, or these leaders use, or what tactics are used to actually recruit people into the cults? First and foremost, you realize there are some specific characteristics of cults. One, you find that these particular leaders are very authoritative. Okay, so they use a lot of authoritarian kind of leadership, meaning I cannot question you. So we go with your set of beliefs and values. And then they also try and isolate their members. So that means when you isolate me, I'm not able to interact with the other people in the other community or my society where I come from. So I only interact with this particular cult. So even it's about what we believe in vis-a-vis what the others exactly in the society believe in. There's also a lot of they're extreme in everything that they do. Okay, so you see the fact that all this is happening around this particular cult, they use a lot of influence. Okay, so the influence could either be my behavior modification, because I want to modify your behavior by just making sure that you believe that what we are telling you, the beliefs and the values we are trying to set, in particular this particular cult, it's what you should believe in vis-a-vis others. Okay, so they'll use a lot of that behavior modification. They'll also use a lot of mind control. Okay, so something we call thought stopping, whereby we do not want you to anything else to come to your conscious that will make you doubt this particular cult. So at times you find some of them, they actually practice what we call, they repeat some phrases just to make sure they keep on instilling their values and the beliefs within your particular mind. So that is actually mind control. And others even at times they use phobia. Okay, they tell you if you leave these cults, the worst could happen to you. So you're safer staying with them. Exactly. So influence is, and even the information they give you. Yes, it's around what makes a cult very safe for you other than being out there. Yeah, because when we were listening to some of the people who were rescued, some even said they really didn't see anything wrong with being in that particular church. Yes. And in fact, them being taken to hospital to them was like, why are you interfering with my normal life? So the indoctrination or brainwashing, as you're putting it, the leader had put in their minds that this is the best way to live. The children don't have to go to school. Remember, the child was saying, it is not Pastor Mackenzie who's saying that we shouldn't go to school, but it's God who is saying it. But actually, it's the pastor who actually put that in their minds. And so, does it become very difficult for these people to get out? And what tends to happen for those who try to get out of this kind of things? Let's say this, when you're joining a cult, nobody really wakes up in the morning to say, I'm going to join a cult. You find others are born into it, others are forced into cults, others are actually manipulated to join cults. And you find how most people join these cults is that it's how you will relate with you. So I'll come to you as a family member, as a co-worker. So it's very hard for you to say no
to my invite to join this particular cult. So you'll find that by the time I'm in there already, I'm already so dependent to this particular cult, and they've already to a level to whereby I cannot almost not move out. And you find that most of them, the challenge they would have is that they really don't know where to start from. First and foremost,
it actually is like it looks like a pyramid scheme.
Exactly, like a pyramid. In fact, how they recruit their members. I'll bring you on board. You'll bring your co-worker. You'll bring your family member. So you see, it's very, very
closely knit.
Very closely knit. Yeah. Exactly, and they'll encourage you. Whoever is not part of you, you don't associate with them. So today, when I realize I'm in a cult, because most of them when they join, they don't realize this is a cult they're joining. But at some point when you come to that realization and you want to move out, you realize, okay, fine, I do not have support. Maybe I don't even have the finances to move out. So all you do is that you find others who really want to get out of that space. They could be there physically, but they've actually disconnected psychologically.
Because then they realize something is amiss.
Something is amiss here.
Yeah, and like you said, these groups or these cults tend to meet some needs. You know, maybe if it's poverty, they're able to provide a shelter, food, and all that. Now let's come to the work that you do, and that is psychological therapy for some of these people who have joined whatever forms of cult, and we'll be coming to other forms of cult because people think like cults are only religious, but we'll come to that. But what kind of therapy do you now take them through to be able to get them out of this way of thinking?
Remember, these people, most of them have actually been brainwashed. A lot of mind control, what you call psychologically. So basically, we have to start with, again, working with their thoughts, because remember, my behavior is actually determined by what I think, how it makes me feel. Basically, that's how we see it in terms of your behavior. So what can also work very well for such a person is what you call cognitive behavior therapy, or what you call CBT. Because what we're asking ourselves is that, what have you been thinking about? Because this kind of thoughts that you've had, or what has been instilled, is basically what is making you feel what you feel. Maybe you, for instance, somebody who has self-esteem issues, they'll be bombarded with love. So the cult will make you feel this is a safe place for love and acceptance. So that's how you want to associate the two. So to get such a person out, then you really have to really work on their thought patterns. They have what is rational, what is not rational, then how does that affect your emotions, and then how do that do or change your behavior at the end of the day.
And I'm thinking children. You know, it's one thing when you're dealing with somebody like Marie, who is a grown-up and so was socialized differently and has joined this group and then realizes something is wrong. But what about a child who is born into it or forced into it? How do you really help that kind of an individual?
First and foremost, you realize even their own psychological and emotional development is actually affected. Because this child will not have the opportunity to grow like any other child, engage in the activities like a normal child would, and of course you'll find it even affects the developmental milestones in life. So it's quite some work for this child. And you know, for a child, it's not like you and I, where I can ask you, Marie, what did they tell you? How are you feeling about this? So we use a lot of expressive arts, play and art at least, to be able to tell you, they're able to narrate their story, because again, it's about them narrating their story, and then now you can see how you can be able to do what? To help this particular child.
Okay. Before we delve into the support system, because it's very easy to dismiss these people, you know, like, can't you really see this is harming you or harming your family, and not understanding the psychological, you know, pressure that they are in and the indoctrination that has happened. Let's backtrack a little bit. So people think like cults are only associated with religious activities, but then there are very many other types of cults.
Yes, true, Marie. Actually, there are many other cults. And remember, cults can also be open and closed. Because when you talk about religious acts, because that's what we know, that it can only be religious, but it can also have professional associations. You can also have personal development groups, support groups as cults, okay? So you'll find that these ones could actually be open. That means we are not closing Marie out from interacting with the society, but their way of doing things, or it's very, very different, okay? So what you're saying is that when you're talking about cults, it's not just religious. There are also other dimensions, okay? The other dimensions of, even that's now what you call indoctrination. You can actually do it spiritually, you can actually do it politically, you can even do it theologically. Exactly. So spiritually, you find it's a lot of deception, like what you could see it at Shakahola. Then there's also the professional bit, and there's also the theological bit. So it's all around us.
Just finishing, I mean, it's very easy to probably identify a religious cult, but a professional cult, probably like someone like me who's a journalist, I've joined a professional group and they're promising to help me become better at my job and all that. What are those telltale signs that actually the professional group you're in is likely a cult?
You'll find that some of the, remember there are those set of values again and beliefs at the end of the day, or the ideas that they hold. Do they resonate with your own, first and foremost? Because any time where there's a mental conflict, okay, that is already a red flag for you. That this does not fit in with what you believe in. This does not fit in with what you stand for as an individual or as a person. So I think that will be the first red flag for you as an individual, because we cannot sit and say per se is a criteria whereby we can say this cuts across all professional cults or any other personal development cult. No. But the fact that the first thing will just let you know is that mental conflict already. They will just tell you there's something wrong here. And because that means they don't, it doesn't resonate with your own personal values and beliefs. Yes.
And chances are like the isolation, probably like you're talking about earlier, would happen. So those are some of the things whereby now you're giving yourself to this particular profession or this particular group more than maybe the other important things in your life.
Exactly, or maybe what their requirements to be able to fit in that particular group, okay? Maybe you need to do this, practice this, and so relate to such kind of people. So you see, and remember most of them are not closed, as I said, yeah? So that means you'll not be taken to the forest anywhere per se to be away from your family. Most of them are actually open. Okay. Yeah, so that's actually, again, that's what makes it a bit different. Yeah, and maybe that is why it doesn't really come out as a what?
Exactly. Now, when it comes to family support or social support, that is very important for people who have found themselves in such a situation. And so that brings me to the issue of stigma. We tend to stigmatize these people instead of trying to understand them. But again, I don't blame them because of they need to be aware that something happened somewhere. Somebody is not as healthy mentally, and that is why they're making those kind of decisions. How important is support?
Family support is very key, Marie, because remember, when I have a close family member, that means somebody is asking me questions. Somebody is keeping close contact with me. For instance, like in the Mackenzie's case, when people woke up in the morning and they went to Kilifi, there must have been a family member asking, where are you going to? Who am I going to stay with? What is happening there? You see, but no, when that is missing, then that becomes, that particular individual is actually very, very vulnerable to basically what happens there. And you can imagine, for instance, if they're going to a new area, who is there to embrace and to welcome them? Unfortunately, it's this cult member, okay? So you see, family is very key, because even when they realize they're in that cult, when there's a close family member, they can actually be able to help them to get out. Because that becomes the biggest challenge. They actually feel they're trapped in this, and only hoping that one day they'll be rescued out of this particular cult. Yeah, so family support is very key.
So while it is for the person who has joined one of these controversial groups or a cult, it is something else also for a family member to go through psychological therapy to be able to help the other person. Because, for instance, like for the Shakahola situation, can you imagine the number of people who are regretting, maybe I should have just forcefully taken the person out, my family or my sister or my children, maybe they will not be dead. So there is that guilt and blame.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really affect only the people who are involved directly, but indirectly.
Indirectly too, because you see, there'll always be, if only I was there for that person. And especially in the cases you're talking about, people who are vulnerable, who probably have self-esteem issues, or who are struggling with loneliness in life. You see, if there was somebody who was close with that person, probably would not have ended where? In that particular cult. So you'll find that, yes, there's a bit of guilt, there's a bit of blame. If only I was able to do this, then this would not have happened. So even this, like in the case of Shakahola, in the family members, they also need help. They also need help, because again, a bit of loss, we've also lost a loved one here. People are grieving. Some of them are in shock, they're in denial, this could not be happening. So they also, those parties, they also need to be helped.
And that's exactly the thing, the denial, the grief, even for the person who's trying to get out, because they're like, I mean, I gave everything to this particular group. And you mean it was also not true? So they also go through their own
They will
phases.
also go through, yes, they also need to go through therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, because actually from following the story, some of them will tell you they sold their property. They sold all they had, okay? So that means I've lost something that I really valued. So they also need to be helped. Otherwise, it can be what? It can actually end up with a mental issue.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, last but not least, what steps can people take to maintain a healthy or, their mental health? Yeah.
I think first and foremost, it starts with our own self-awareness. And that is now where we normally, when you're engaging our clients, we just want to understand, are you even first of all aware about yourself? Remember when I began and defining what wellness was, I talked about realizing your own abilities. Do we even know really what your strengths are? What are you good at? And when I'm faced with these stressful situations, because they're actually the part of our life, then do I know how I can cope? Do I have those coping skills and mechanisms? Do I have a close-knit support system, whether it is family, work, wherever it's coming from? Because that is the first step to be able to help me as an individual to be able to still remain rational and still functioning and still productive despite what I'm going through. But again, you see, when that is missing, then that becomes a big a disadvantage for that particular individual. And you'll find that they'll end up in scenarios whereby they do not want to be in the very first place. Yeah, so self-awareness is very key, just to know who you are. Because again, some of them you'll find them joining cults because they want to just, they are looking for answers in life.
Identity.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and they believe these cults have those absolute answers for them. So, but if you knew truly who you are, then you'll not go out looking for what? Looking for answers elsewhere. So it's a lot of just understanding ourselves, even just to know really what is this cult all about. And I think this show is very good because it's bringing that awareness, that sensitization to us as individuals, really. What is really a cult, and how do I find myself there? What are the signs I should be looking out for? So that interaction is also very, very good for all our individuals.
And definitely embracing psychological health in the terms of, we're told at least see your doctor once a year.
Exactly.
And have a checkup.
Yes.
But how many of us actually take the time to visit a psychologist or a counselor?
True.
People should normalize that.
Exactly. And actually the whole idea is to demystify the whole idea that when you see a counselor, you have a mental issue. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Remember, we need healthy people wherever we are, whether it's at our workplace, all around us. And for me to be healthy, then for sure, then a counselor will be very key, or our psychologist around you, or just having that insight really what psychology is all about. Yes.
They say there is no health without mental health.
Yes.
Yeah. And everybody is susceptible.
True.
Because there is that notion like, if we see the group of people who were actually affected in the Shakahola, tragedy or, all that, people tend to look at it like, oh, no, not for me. But like you've rightly put it, we have people in high places, professionals, you can be affected in one or another. Unfortunately, most cults are associated with religious practices where people now go to the extent of even selling their properties, and selling their properties to either give to money to the pastor, or
the leader.
And when such things happen, I think that is a red flag for someone to actually
and it's always because there's a promising reward. Like you see in the Mackenzie's case, we'll go to meet Jesus. So for sure, whenever there's a reward, they'll actually know what they'll find themselves in it. And
the reward definitely is better than what I'm having here.
Exactly.
So it's worth all the sacrifices that I need to make.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Josephine, for coming in and elaborating for us what mental health and cultism, what is the connection, and also just enlightening us in terms of what are some of the signs that we can look out for, and the fact that cults are not just religious, but they could also be professional groups. So check yourself out. You might just find yourself that probably you're in a group that does not resonate, with your beliefs and values, and that's the key according to Josephine, that you need to look out for. So thank you back at home for taking the time to be with us today. Hope that the program was worth your while and that you learned one or two in terms of the signs you can look out for in terms of whether a loved one or yourself is belonging to a group that does not actually ascribe to your values. So we hope to see you next time. My name is Marie Yambo.